I'm Zach Dishman. This is my crawfish farm. We call it Dishman Crawfish Farms. We're also rice farmers, and we've been farming crawfish. This is our 9th season. I probably started really rice farming on my own until I was about 28 years old. And I farmed a couple of years, and my cousin Josie, he had already farmed a year or two. He was a little younger than me, and he started farming a little bit out of high school. And then once I started farming, and we just, we seen that crawfish can be profitable. We were, already using the land, and crawfish has been going on in Louisiana for decades, and that's what they do is farm the rice, and then they harvest crawfish right behind the rice the following season. So we just decided we want to do it. Yeah, so when we bring the crawfish in, a lot of them, we unsack them. They come off the boats already sacked, and it's kind of like what they call a vegetable sack. But we'll just dump one sack per basket. And sometimes we got certain areas of fields that are catching a little bit better size than the others. Sometimes we mix them. And when we purge them, we're basically just cleaning them. The tanks aerate water, and we just clean the tanks out every 2 to 3 days with fresh water. And the crawfish are basically just detoxing. They're just allowing the waste that's in them to come out. And it just gives for a cleaner product. Unpurged crawfish doesn't hurt anybody. It's just when you cook crawfish, if they're already have been cleaned, then they just are fresher. Your boiling water's gonna stay fresher and cleaner longer. And so we just pretty much, it just offers a chance to have a better product and to, obviously make a little more on your income with your sales. And they're basically in the tanks. Sometimes they're in there 4 to 6 hours, and sometimes they stay overnight, so they could be an 18 to 20 hour period. Primarily a clean crawfish, if you dip them in there and go through them and sort them, you're cleaning them. But to have a true purge crawfish, probably 6 to 8 hours. The guys that work for me do a really good job. There's not a lot of grass or any turtles, or you hear all those stories, but they come in because they clean all that off on the boat table. But you still have mud within the crawfish themselves that they naturally just clean out, as they stay in there. The baskets have a cover over the top, and that's just basically because we've got a lot of problems with birds getting in there at night, just eating crawfish. Out here you get a lot of grackles. They get in there and, man, they tear them up, and they just make a mess. The tanks are made out of aluminum. I think they're about 20 foot long, and I don't know maybe whether, I can't remember how wide they are, but basically we have 10 baskets per tank. We have 50 baskets, and the crawfish are strong. We can purge up to 65, maybe 70 sacks. Early season, you can only put one sack per basket. So it gives us an opportunity to purge about 50 to 60 sacks most of the time. We have one guy that buys a large amount of our crawfish, and he does catering and different things. So we just kind of, we work accordingly to order. Sometimes he don't have to have them washed at all, just straight out of the field, and so that helps out too. It just saves a lot of labor. A sacking table here behind us, and we generally hang a sack from that table, and we start sacking. We've already sacked everything this morning, but so we just, the ones that are coming out of the tanks, we sack them on the table. We dump the basket onto the table, kind of sort through if there's any dead or any little ones that we want to pull out, and get those out, just kind of cull those out, and then we just start sacking them up, tying the sacks and weighing them and put them on the racks, put them in the cooler. And then if we have any that just came straight from the field that we didn't go through any of the sacks, then we would just simply tag them, put them straight in the cooler. And of course, what rack has what crawfish on it and stuff. So dead crawfish you cannot sell dead. They have to be alive. They can stay good frozen, basically in real cold temperature for a day or two, but for the most part they're going to start deteriorating and becoming just mush and rot basically if they're dead for more than a day or two. So that's the hardest thing about crawfish. A lot of people don't realize early in the season when crawfish are tough to get and then they're not living well. It's just because crawfish, they're perishable quick. They just don't last. And so, if crawfish is caught and sold a week later, they had to go through the sack. They couldn't have just sold every bit of crawfish that they bought out of that sack because they would be, 10 or 15% would probably be dead. Yeah, the market's grew tremendously. There's just a demand for them. You hear now, like Mexican food restaurants have crawfish in them. It's just an attraction to bring in business, Of course, there's just a demand for the regular people that want to cook them throughout the season, but all your little restaurants and stuff, they just seem to want to sell crawfish. They feel like it's going to bring in people and bring in atmosphere, and so, you know, crawfish have just become very popular, and there's